Have you ever doubted the person your child was about to marry? I did, and to find out if he was truly worthy of my daughter's love, I did something that would change everything. I pretended to be a homeless beggar to test him. Here's what happened next. It was a decision that could cost me everything: my relationship with my daughter, my trust in her fiancé, and possibly my reputation as a parent. But I was willing to risk it all. As a parent, you only want the best for your child, and when it comes to something as important as marriage, the stakes couldn't be higher. My daughter, Sarah, had fallen head over heels for Jason. On the surface, he seemed perfect, charming, successful, and good-looking. But there was something about him that didn't sit right with me. I watched as Sarah adored him, and every time she spoke about him, I could see the light in her eyes. Yet deep down, something kept nagging at me. Was he the right one for her? I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something about Jason that wasn't what it appeared to be. Was he just interested in her for her beauty and status? Or was there something deeper, something I couldn't see? I couldn't just sit by and let her make the biggest decision of her life without knowing who Jason truly was. So, I decided to do something unthinkable. Something that no one would see coming. I pretended to be a homeless beggar. You might think that's extreme, and trust me, it felt that way. But I needed to know the truth, and the only way to uncover it was to place him in a situation that revealed his true character. Was he really the man I thought he was? Or would his actions prove me wrong? Let me take a step back. Sarah has always been the light of my life. She's kind, loving, and deserving of a partner who will stand by her through thick and thin. For as long as I've known her, she's been the type of person who would do anything for others. She deserves a man who will appreciate that, not take advantage of it. When Sarah first introduced me to Jason, I thought he seemed like a nice guy. He was handsome, well-spoken, and had a promising career ahead of him. At first, I thought maybe I'm just being paranoid. But as time passed, I began to notice small things about him that bothered me. The way he seemed more interested in his business ventures than in the things that mattered. The way he seemed to disregard people who didn't serve his interests. I couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't the right match for her. I've always been protective of Sarah. She's my only child, and I've seen her go through heartbreak before. The last thing I wanted was for her to fall for someone who wouldn't cherish her. I knew I had to figure out who Jason truly was, and I couldn't rely on just his words. I needed to see his actions. So I came up with a plan. I decided to put him to the ultimate test. But I wasn't going to make it obvious. No, I wanted to see his true character when he didn't think anyone was watching. That's when I came up with the idea to pretend to be a homeless beggar. It would be the perfect test of his compassion and his willingness to help someone in need. The preparation for this test wasn't easy. I had to get into character, and that meant going all in. I rummaged through my old clothes and found a worn-out jacket, some torn jeans, and shoes that had seen better days. I took dirt and smudged it on my face to complete the look. Then I grabbed an old cardboard sign that read, "Will work for food." I knew I looked ridiculous, but I didn't care. This wasn't about me, it was about making sure my daughter wasn't marrying someone who would treat her like she was invisible. I found a spot on a busy street, not too far from where Sarah and Jason often walked. It was a place that would allow me to observe them without being too noticeable. As I sat there, pretending to be a beggar, I couldn't help but feel nervous. My hands trembled as I gripped the cardboard sign, and my heart raced. What if Jason didn't care? What if he just walked past me without a second thought? I had to know. The clock ticked as I waited. I could hear the hum of the street, the laughter of people passing by, but my focus was on one thing: Jason. Would he stop? Would he see me? Or would he just keep walking like I didn't exist? I didn't have to wait long. I saw them approaching, Sarah laughing with Jason by her side. They were walking arm in arm, looking so happy, so in love. My heart ached for my daughter, but at the same time, I couldn't help but feel a pang of doubt. This was it. My opportunity to see if Jason was the kind of man who would be there for her when it mattered. How would he react? As they came closer, I held my breath. Jason looked down at my sign, but it wasn't the same glance I had hoped for. He didn't stop. He didn't even slow down. His eyes flicked over my face for a second before he turned away, and without hesitation, he continued walking. Sarah didn't seem to notice. She kept talking to him, completely unaware of the test that had just failed. My stomach sank. This was it? This was the man I was supposed to trust with my daughter's heart? Jason's reaction wasn't just disappointing, it was revealing. He didn't stop. He didn't even give me the time of day. He passed by me as if I wasn't there, just another piece of the background. As I sat there, trying to keep my emotions in check, I realized something. This wasn't just about a momentary lapse in judgment. This was about a pattern. Jason had shown me exactly who he was, and it wasn't someone I was comfortable with for my daughter. A man who couldn't even spare a second to acknowledge someone in need wasn't the kind of man Sarah deserved. As I sat there watching Sarah and Jason fade into the distance, I felt a surge of frustration. What had I expected, really? For him to stop, hand me a few bucks and then walk off? No, this wasn't about money. It wasn't even about kindness in the traditional sense. It was about seeing if Jason had the empathy and decency to understand the value of human connection. But watching him walk away like I didn't even exist, like I was invisible, left a bitter taste in my mouth. Was he just too focused on his own world? Was I expecting too much from him? I thought about all the little things that mattered. The way he treated waiters, the way he reacted when things didn't go his way. I had noticed before that he didn't show much patience for people who didn't have something to offer him. My mind raced with thoughts. Maybe I was wrong about him. Maybe he wasn't as bad as I thought. Maybe I was projecting my own fears onto him, concerns that came from my protective instinct as a parent. But then again, how could I not worry? As a mother, it was my job to ensure that the person my daughter married was someone who would put her needs first, someone who would stand by her no matter what. A true partner. Was Jason that person? Or was he just someone who loved the idea of being with someone like Sarah, who came from a good family and had a bright future? Was I really putting her in a good position by trusting him? An hour passed. My body ached from sitting on the cold pavement, but I couldn't leave. I needed more answers. I needed to be sure. What happened next, though, would completely change my perspective on Jason forever. To my surprise, Jason didn't just keep walking after he passed me. He actually stopped a few feet ahead and turned around. I held my breath. Was he coming back? Did he realize that what he did wasn't right? I could barely believe it when I saw him walking back toward me. But what shocked me even more was the look in his eyes. He wasn't walking with the same confidence or the same aloofness. There was something different about the way he carried himself now. When he reached me, he didn't say anything at first. He just stood there staring down at me. I was too stunned to speak. Had he come to apologize? Had he figured out who I was? "Hey," he finally said, his voice soft but steady. I know you're probably not going to believe me, but I saw you sitting here and I thought you could use some help. Here, I've got a few bucks." He reached into his wallet and pulled out a couple of bills, handing them to me. My heart stopped. The way he looked at me wasn't just one of pity, it was genuine concern. There was something in his gaze that I hadn't seen before, and it rattled me. Could this be the same person who had walked past me with no hesitation? Had he really come back because he felt guilty? I took the money, but I didn't say anything at first. I wanted to see where this was going. Maybe this was his way of making up for his initial reaction. Maybe he wasn't as bad as I had thought. As he stood there, I noticed something else. His hands were trembling. Jason wasn't the kind of person who trembled, or at least, that's how I'd always seen him. He was always so confident, so composed. But here he was, standing in front of me, his gaze soft, unsure of how to act. "I'm sorry," he said after a moment. "I'm not used to seeing people like you, and I didn't know how to react at first. I don't usually stop for beggars, but there was something about you, something that made me realize I was wrong." I stared at him, unsure how to process this new revelation. Was this really the same man who had dismissed me earlier? The same man who couldn't spare a second to even acknowledge my presence? Could he be so different now? "You're right," I said finally, my voice quieter than I expected. "I didn't expect you to stop. But it's not about money. It's about how you see people. You can't just walk past someone who needs help and pretend they don't exist. It's about recognizing the humanity in others, especially when it's inconvenient." Jason nodded, his eyes softening as he absorbed my words. "I know. I get it now. I'm sorry." His voice was sincere, and for the first time I believed him. I could feel my own heart soften, but at the same time I was confused. Had I misjudged him completely? Was this the moment where everything changed for the better? But as I sat there on the cold pavement looking up at Jason, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling in the back of my mind. This moment, as genuine as it seemed, wasn't enough to completely erase the doubts I had about him. The truth was, I didn't know him as well as I thought I did. Sure, he seemed like a good guy on the surface. He had the perfect job, the perfect life, and the perfect smile. But what did any of that mean if he wasn't capable of seeing past his own interests to help someone in need? And if I'm being honest with myself, I wasn't just testing him because I didn't trust him. I was also testing him because I wasn't sure if Sarah had the judgment to see who he really was. She was so in love, so blind to the red flags that I had been seeing. I needed to protect her, even if it meant risking my own relationship with her. I took a deep breath and slowly stood up. The physical discomfort of sitting on the ground for so long had finally gotten to me, but I was more focused on what was happening in front of me. Jason was still standing there, waiting for me to say something, to react. But all I could think about was how torn I felt. Should I be relieved that he'd come back, or should I be even more suspicious now? Was he genuinely a changed man, or was this just a moment of guilt? Jason, I said, my voice steady but filled with emotion. I'm not doing this to embarrass you. I'm doing this because I need to know that you can be the kind of man who'll look out for my daughter. That's all. He nodded, his face serious. I get it. I'll do better. I promise. But in my heart, I wasn't sure if that promise meant anything at all. Could he really change? Could he prove to me and to Sarah that he wasn't just a man who looked good on paper but lacked the substance to back it up? The next few days were filled with uncertainty. Jason's reaction to my test had left me conflicted. On one hand, he had returned and shown genuine remorse. But on the other hand, I couldn't ignore the fact that he had walked past me without a second thought the first time. Was this behavior a fluke, or was he just playing the part of a good man in front of me, knowing that I was watching? My trust in him wasn't built in a single moment, it would take time. I kept my distance from him after that encounter, not because I didn't want to talk, but because I needed time to process everything. I had invested so much of my energy into protecting Sarah that I didn't want to risk pushing her away by overstepping. I wasn't sure what the right move was, but I knew that I couldn't let this go without fully understanding what kind of person Jason was. It was then that I decided I needed more evidence, more proof that Jason was someone worthy of my daughter's heart. The way he handled the situation after the test would be the true deciding factor. I couldn't be satisfied with just one act of kindness. It had to be consistent. So, I decided to continue observing him, just this time from a different angle. A few days later, I received a call from Sarah. She sounded happy, so happy, in fact, that it almost made me feel guilty for questioning Jason in the first place. "Mom, guess what?" she exclaimed. "Jason and I are having dinner at that new restaurant tonight. He's been working so hard lately and I just wanted to spend some quality time with him. It's going to be so nice." I smiled, pretending to be excited for her. "That sounds wonderful, sweetie. Enjoy yourselves. Maybe this will be the night you two really connect and make more memories." But in my mind, I couldn't stop thinking about what Jason had said to me the other day. Would he act the same way tonight? Would he be the same man who showed kindness, or the same man who passed by without a second glance? As Sarah's excitement carried on through the phone, I knew this was my chance. If Jason truly cared for her, he would make an effort to connect, not only with her but with the people around him. So I hatched a plan. I wasn't going to stop the test, I was going to turn it up a notch. This time, I would do it subtly, almost undetectably, to make sure Jason was truly being his authentic self. That evening, I made my way to the same restaurant where Sarah and Jason were dining. I had no intention of interfering, but I planned to sit at a nearby table, where I could discreetly observe them. If Jason was as genuine as he claimed to be, he would treat the staff with kindness, care for Sarah, and prove that he wasn't just putting on a show for me. As I entered the restaurant, I couldn't help but feel a sense of déjà vu. The lights were dim and the atmosphere was warm and welcoming. The restaurant had an air of elegance, and everything seemed perfect, just the kind of place where people would want to celebrate an evening with someone they loved. I sat at a corner booth, making sure I had a clear line of sight to Sarah and Jason's table. They were seated near the center of the restaurant, a bit away from where I was, but still within view. I ordered a drink and waited patiently. My heart thudded with anticipation. This was it. The moment that would give me the answers I needed. It didn't take long for the waiter to approach them. Jason greeted him with a polite smile, but then something unexpected happened. As Sarah scanned the menu, Jason reached over, placed his hand on hers, and said something that made my heart skip a beat. "Don't worry about the menu, I've got it covered," Jason said softly, looking at Sarah with a tenderness I had never seen before. I watched closely. This was the first true test how he treated Sarah. He wasn't just the businessman I'd seen before. He was trying to make her feel special, cared for. There was no sense of superiority, no smugness. His actions weren't just about him, they were about her. I leaned back in my seat, my hands resting on the table. Maybe I had misjudged him all along. Maybe this man, the one I had tested on the street, was the same person who could treat Sarah with kindness and love. My doubts began to fade, but there was still more to observe. As the evening unfolded, I watched as Jason interacted with the staff, holding doors open for the waiters, thanking them, and even offering a generous tip to one of the busboys. It was a stark contrast to the man I had first met, the one who appeared indifferent to those who could do nothing for him. Jason laughed with Sarah, shared a few personal stories, and even encouraged her to try new things on the menu, joking about how she always played it safe. His sense of humor, his warmth, and his genuine interest in her happiness were becoming increasingly apparent. Then, just when I thought the evening couldn't get any better, I witnessed something that completely changed my perspective on him. As the dinner came to a close, Sarah excused herself to use the restroom. Jason, left alone at the table, took a deep breath and glanced around the restaurant. That's when he saw the homeless man outside the window. Without hesitation, Jason stood up, walked out of the restaurant, and approached the man. I watched from my seat as he knelt down, speaking softly to the homeless man. He handed him some money, but that wasn't all. Jason also took a few moments to have a conversation with him, offering him a kind word, a gesture that was completely selfless. I didn't need to hear the conversation. I could see it all in Jason's body language. He wasn't doing it for show. He wasn't trying to prove something to me. He was doing it because he genuinely cared. This was the man I had been waiting to see. When Jason returned to the table, he seemed different. There was a warmth in his eyes that hadn't been there before. When Sarah came back to the table, he greeted her with a smile, and it was clear that the evening had been just as meaningful to him as it was to her. As they left the restaurant, Sarah leaned in and kissed him on the cheek. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I could see that she was happy. And that, in turn, made me happy. I realized then that the test wasn't just about Jason's reaction to me or to his environment, it was about how he treated others, no matter who they were or what they had to offer him. And in that moment, I saw a man who was worthy of my daughter's love. What do you think about Jason's actions? Do you believe he passed the test? Or was he still hiding something? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you're enjoying the story.